Well, everyone, I want to thank you all for coming today to our breakfast with Oceana, with Brady Bradshaw. This is a very important breakfast. It's a little more information on the oceans that we love. Being in San Diego, it's something that we care for very much. I'm reporting from Facility Fusion out of my own kitchen, and wanted to let you know that Facility Fusion is doing well, plus all the people all over the world attending it. I'll have great information for you guys at our next meeting. So what we'd like to do is do a little bit of the announcements coming up. It is Earth Day. Is it today or is it tomorrow? But it's Earth Week.
Today.
And this is a time we need to really show how much we care. We should be showing it throughout the year, but this is when we celebrate it. So in our announcements, Will, can you play the slides, please?
Yep.
You're going to love this footage as soon as we get it. We're going to be having our next meeting on May 12th, I believe it is, or is it the 14th? It's about RFP panel reviews. For those who have to write RFPs, it's going to give you a lot of good information. I Love a Clean San Diego is happening on Saturday. You could still sign up for it and pick up a lot of litters. There's a QR code there for you if you are techie and you don't have a touch screen or something right now as you're viewing this. There is our RFP process panel for May 12th. And then we have coming up in June, let's do the CFM and the SFP and the FMP reviews as well. Those are the classes for those who are looking for that and wondering where they're at. We do have the CFM exam review scheduled now for June 2nd. June 4th is our golf tournament. There's lots of information on that. There are still sponsorship opportunities available for those who want to sponsor. There's your QR code if you want to register for twosomes, foursomes, and some individuals will be able to golf too. They don't have a miniature golf for me, so I'll have to find something else to do. But anyway, this is a lot of fun. It's for the Ronald McDonald House, a place that gives the whole care to a sick child, not just the child, but to their family as well, making sure everyone is taken care of together, that they're healing together. So those are announcements, and I'd like to turn it over to Denise right now to introduce our speaker. And you're muted. There we go.
Yes, there I am. Okay, I have the pleasure of introducing Brady Bradshaw. He actually presented for another organization I belong to, and so I'm really excited to hear him speak and for all of you to hear him speak. The work he does at Oceana is incredibly important and super interesting. So Brady, as a passionate waterman and environmental activist, Brady has spent most of his life in water sports, marine biology studies, and ocean conservation. He graduated from UNC Wilmington with honors in marine biology while managing several campaigns with UNCW ECO, and went on to study for a short time on the Great Barrier Reef. Along his journey, Brady has drawn upon conversations with a diversity of coastal residents, an intimate athletic connection with the ocean, and years of ecological studies to craft his own philosophy about humanity's relationship with the ocean. He believes that human health, community empowerment, and ocean health are inseparable. It is my pleasure to give the mic over to Brady.
Yay!
Thanks, Denise. Thank you all for having me here. It's really great to see all of your ocean backgrounds and to feel the ocean love on this Earth Day. So yeah, I don't know if you can see in my background, I've got my monofin on the wall. So that's my ocean background for today. As well as being cool. Oceana's field representative, I'm also a competitive freediver and currently hold 2 national records in underwater swimming. So I love, experiencing the ocean and also sharing ways to hopefully conserve the ocean. I'm going to share my screen, and I just need access, I think, to be able to do that. Sorry, Will, I just switched over to my Mac for this. So, okay,
you're all set.
Great, thank you. Just give me 1 second here. I guess I'm having some Mac issues. All right, you know what? I'm just going to go back on my other computer Apologies, guys. Okay. Just doing a quick computer switch here. So y'all can hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Here we go. All right, thanks for your patience, y'all. Are we all set? You see the presentation? Great.
Yeah, you're good.
Oceana is the organization that I work for, and we are the largest international nonprofit that is strictly dedicated to protecting the oceans. We work on a number of campaigns, and our motto is save the oceans, feed the world. So in addition to being an ocean conservation organization, we're also a humanitarian organization that focuses on helping feed the world's most popular, the world's most vulnerable populations who rely on fish as a source of protein. So the ways that we do that are through protecting habitat, increasing transparency on illegal, underreported, and fish that are caught in really untraditional ways, or that are caught using methods that have large amounts of bycatch. So a lot of our focus internationally is on fishing, but we also have a major effort to curb pollution as it becomes more and more of a predominant threat, and it's threatening every aspect of the marine ecosystem. So the focus of today is on the plastic pollution crisis, and this has become a major focus of Oceana as more and more data has become available in the past years about just how rampant this issue is. We've taken it on as a full-time campaign and really honed in on source reduction of these single-use throwaway items. Globally, we're seeing a problem where many of the ocean organisms that we have grown to love are getting entangled. The megafauna in the ocean, such as dolphins and whales, are either getting entangled in line or having a lot of plastic bags end up in the digestive systems of these animals. And from every level of life, the ocean ecosystem is being impacted by large plastics and microplastics. This issue transfers over to basically a lot of third world countries are experiencing the fallout of the plastic pollution that is being created in the larger plastic producing countries. The United States is on the rise for plastic production, but we're shipping much of it overseas. In 2017, the Oceana, Spain went on an expedition where we discovered deep sea plastics, and we've been part of the research effort that's been happening globally to find what's really being shown is that microplastics and these particles, as well as larger items, are being found in the deep ocean and really being found at every level of biological organization in the ocean. So this is just a picture of a plastic bag. I've got a lot of images that sort of demonstrate. Again, this issue is rampant, and some of the producers of these items are mostly from Europe, but the facilities are all around the world. As I said,
plastics being found in the deepest ocean. This is an image that we took off the deep sea trenches off the Pacific coast, and this wasn't even, we went on an expedition just to basically discover what life exists off of the California coast. We were able to discover a lot of golden corals and really delicate ecosystems as a part of our campaign to freeze bottom trawling. And many of the images that we found in that process were of animals interacting with plastic as if it might be prey. So this bag represents something like a sinking fish carcass. This is something that a lot of deep sea organisms would feed on. And just another example of something that looks like a fish, but actually to the detriment of these animals isn't, and it's going to last forever in their digestive systems. Sea turtles often mistake plastic bags for jellyfish. They're pretty similar in appearance, and just the evolutionary history of these animals doesn't really, they're basically have a simple brain and are trained evolutionarily to go after these things. So I wish that we could just tell the sea turtles that, be a little more careful in selecting your prey, but it's really built in, and a lot of these sea turtles are ingesting plastic. This is the result. We recently did a study where Oceana studied 90,000 cases. And so this was not necessarily a study, but what we did was we conferred with a bunch of different scientific organizations, such as Moat Marine Lab, the Pacific Marine Mammal Foundation, and some organizations that actually work with these strandings and these discoveries. We found that 88% of the animals that we looked at were actually endangered. So this is a tennis court, and this is a whale's stomach, and we're seeing images like this increasingly more common in the ocean. Plastic bags, large plastic mats, packaging. A lot of this is packaging and coming from the shipping industry and some of the organizations that are in e-commerce. So right now in California, we're working towards a bill that would phase out plastic packaging in e-commerce. This is the albatross. Many of you may know of the albatross. Its habitat is they're born on an island, and the parents go basically gather food off the surface of the ocean. This area where they're gathering, there are a lot of plastic particles. It's the Pacific gyres. So this albatross is feeding its baby plastic. And this resembles actually squid eggs. So this is another example of plastic being a mimicry of something that is natural. And we've seen many images like this. Most of these albatrosses are filled with these bits of plastic. And they're also an endangered species. So how does this end up in the ocean? Plastic on the streets and waterways, all of it goes downstream and ends up getting towards the ocean. And basically we have a lot of examples where the mismanagement of the waste, mismanagement of the waste causes what we call leakage. Sometimes you'll see a garbage truck with trash blowing out of the top, or the barges that actually ship plastic overseas can be mismanaged and spill over into the ocean. So I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the breakdown. So some people, I don't think it's very common anymore, but some folks will say that plastic does break down. And you can see a piece of old plastic on the ground and it kind of looks weathered and like it's almost biodegrading. But what's actually happening is that these are just breaking up into smaller and smaller pieces. And actually what we found is that the average human at this point is now ingesting 5 grams of plastic per week. So microplastics are causing a big problem in the food chain, and they're also becoming smaller particles that are even floating in the air. So in the drinking water, in the air, and this is becoming quickly like a human health hazard. But even these microplastics can even be eaten by plankton, by tiny microscopic plankton. There are many efforts to clean up plastic off the beaches, and we fully support these efforts. I Love a Clean San Diego does a really good job at it, and they have a really great approach. And we also need policy solutions, because lots of people are cleaning up this plastic all around the country and all around the world, but it just keeps coming. And as I said, microplastics have been found in organs of living humans, and it's becoming increasingly a subject of study. So what is behind this? Every year, companies are producing 400 million tons of plastic. So this is sort of skyrocketed over the last decade. With access to natural gas in the United States, we've really created the ability to produce large amounts of it. And these are just some images. I hope this runs smoothly. But this is sort of the real-time production of plastic bottles. And this is just plastic bottles. So it'll freeze right here because this, for some reason, this doesn't work very well. But every day, that's the amount of plastic bottles that are produced in relation to the Eiffel Tower. In a month, 40 billion bottles, which is really alarming. And then if you look at, if folks are familiar with the city of New York, maybe this will make sense to you. I'm not from New York, but I've been there a couple of times. And this is the past decade, we've produced 4 trillion plastic bottles. This is the representation on a graph, and this is a projection that we've made based on existing data and sort of the plans and the plastic production facilities that we're seeing pop up, and sort of industry forecasts about what is expected to be produced. And this is what we're on track for right now for plastic production, is a quadrupling from 2014 to 2050. And yeah, this is basically the efforts to keep the plastic out of the ocean, storm drain projects. There's a lot of good intentioned efforts, and just not enough. So we're needing to see a lot of fundamental change. This is just a slide to, show. I think I wanted to just take a moment to talk about, I know plastic is such an important part of many aspects of our lives. But I've had this conversation with my father, who was a scuba diver for many years, and the first moment of breakthrough that we had together was when we went and dove in the Cayman Islands, and the reefs that he used to dive when he was younger. He was really kind of heartbroken to see what had happened. And it's possible that we can rehabilitate the ocean ecosystems, but right now they're really getting inundated with this mess. Just to break it down a little bit in terms of global plastic production, there's a lot of different sectors, and I suppose this 16% and 14% might be a little more up your alley, but 36% of this is packaging, and that stuff is used mostly once and thrown away. So this is sort of the overview global plastic production each year. I already said this part, but this is plastic packaging, which is designed for one use. And because it's made for one use, we think that it's kind of an inefficient approach. It's made to last forever, but being used only one time. This is sort of the crux of the issue. In 2017, and this is actually, I'm going to keep bringing up I Love a Clean San Diego because I love a clean San Diego. But they're part of the International Coastal Cleanup, which is a yearly effort to gather as much. It's really a data gathering effort as well as a cleanup effort. So it's really cool what they do. 2019 found that these were the top items that were collected, but 2017 was the first year ever that all top 10 items were plastic. And not only were they, but they were also all top 10 found in these cleanups were single use. Durable plastics make up a smaller percentage of non-durable, so the things that we expect to see used only once. I wanted to make sure to touch on inadequate solutions. We're hearing some solutions proposed by some plastic producers, and I just tend to question these approaches sometimes because I'm always on the lookout for cop-outs. Just want to make sure that the solutions that we're advocating for at Oceana are that we believe will actually make a difference. Recycling is one of those issues, and I will get back to this because I know that a lot of folks here may use recycled products, which is a different story. That's actually very helpful. So recycling itself, if that's looked at as the solution, globally, it's only solving 2% of the problem. Out of all the plastic waste that's produced, only 14% is recycled. But to break it down even further, out of that 14%, 8% of that, the majority, is downcycled into lower value, and 4% is not actually recycled at all. It's just lost in the process, burned off in fumes or leaked. So some of the mass is getting lost through the processes, but also part of that is leakage as well. And only 2% total is recycled into something that is of equal or higher value. Glass can be recycled infinite number of times. Also, glass is sand. So I was once on a fishing boat. Someone threw a glass bottle over. Hey, what'd you do that for? And he just said, hey, it's sand. I was like, oh, you're right. So Oceana doesn't have a position on throwing glass overboard, but it just struck me, and I realized since then that glass is a pretty great product. Aluminum can be recycled also an infinite number of times. So, and it's also quite often recycled really well. Paper, a little different, can be recycled around 6 to 7 times, and plastic, very few. So as I said earlier, it's just not very effective. Also, recycling efforts are not keeping pace with global plastic production right now. So we're seeing this exponential rise in plastic, and only kind of a less rapid rise in the ability to recycle. And just take a look at the gap between this. This is sort of a representation. So back in 2010, the gap is a little bit smaller. We may have been more able to handle this tonnage. And because of the rapid increase, we're seeing more and more of a gap and more plastic leaking into the environment. to make matters a little worse, we were formerly, as the United States, we were shipping all of our waste to China. In 2017, they passed what's called the National Sword Policy. So that part of that policy was a ban of imports from the United States of our so-called recycling products. And just to touch on that a little bit more, we're already starting to see landfills piling up because of this, just less of an ability to figure out where to put this stuff. So we really harp on this. This is our chief policy officer, a quote that she coined earlier this year. If your bathtub is overflowing with water, we don't run for a mop to clean it up before we actually turn off the faucet. So we need to turn off the faucet, and recycling is that mop, and it may help at some point. Same with beach cleanups, but right now we need to reduce at the source. Incineration is not a solution that we're in support of. We are seeing the impacts on third world countries, especially where they have less regulation. A lot of people are getting sick from these toxic emissions, and the greenhouse gas impacts are too much. And only about 14%, again, with that 14%, only about that much is actually being converted into energy. A lot of companies are stuck in this way. The product is cheap and the markets have favored it for a long time. And a lot of consumers are not really seeing a clear choice. So this is, plastic isn't in every aisle, and sometimes it's hard to find the alternative. So we're advocating for plastic-free choices, for companies to provide plastic-free choices, and also plastic-free zones. So college campuses, work campuses, facilities, we like to advocate for zones that don't use plastic, or at least these single-use plastics. So our 3 campaign goals are policies, creating plastic-free zones, and having companies offer plastic-free choices. The greater picture on policy, and I know that not everyone here is signed up for understanding policy, so I apologize if this is like a little wonky, and I hope folks are interested in this. But we've seen this great increase recently in national policies around the world regulating the use of single-use plastic. And the United States is not one of those countries, but Peru has a fantastic policy on single-use plastic bags. Chile is working on more components of their policy, but they're I think one of them is styrofoam. They're working on currently banning styrofoam and phasing it out. Really great laws on plastic packaging. Europe has a plastic bag law and some initiatives to phase out and incentivize the transition. And so we really want to build on those examples. And then some companies are really kind of putting themselves out there on the front lines of this. This grocery store has plastic-free produce aisles. And I'm actually not sure what Green Grocers is, but this is one example of a company who has eliminated those single-use plastic bags. This actually, I forget which airline this is as well, but there is an airline, I think out of Spain, that is using, that they're not offering these plastic bottles or these little plastic cups every time you get a new drink. They're using paper products or reusable, washable products. Lush is one of my favorite soap companies, and they introduced a store where they don't even have any packaging at all. This is a Spanish hotel chain that using
Did we lose?
Brady, I think you
That's
froze a little bit.
Brady's frozen. There you are.
Did I drop off there?
You did, yeah, sorry. I
You
don't know
just
what happened.
froze.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I'm not able to hear you guys.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good now. I don't know if you want to reshare your screen.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it again. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
That's not your fault. Probably internet or something.
Yeah. All right. So this just kind of goes back to that, you know, what future do we want to have? I would love for my children to be able to see all these amazing animals and see groups of fish like this that are just swarming the ocean. I've had the ability to see these incredible demonstrations of life and wildlife in the ocean myself in this lifetime. And I think it's just great to maybe not take this so heavily, if possible, to recognize that it's going on, but to think, okay, we are the folks who, like, what does my position of power allow me to do for this issue today and tomorrow, and what can actually be done with ease and in a sustainable way. So I'll just close out by saying that I'm available to discuss these solutions and creative solutions to this issue. And I believe that you all are the ones who are going to have better ideas than me, because I'm so focused on policy all the time. But in the industry realm, I'm really excited to hear what are some creative solutions that some of the folks here might have to helping tackle this issue. And my email is there, and I'll also share my cell phone number in the chat in case anyone ever wants to have a conversation about what could be done. And I think that's my last slide. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go over some Q&A. I think some questions have been asked in the chat room. So one of the questions is, are there proposed alternatives to plastic? What is the policy on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of market it, how do they call it? Market available, I think, is the word that they would use. Things that are available for the market, maybe slightly more expensive right now, but some of us have probably seen some of these products starting to make an occurrence in packaging. There's like a paper foam is one of the examples instead of styrofoam. They figured out a way to sort of like puff out paper to be just like styrofoam, but it's biodegradable for packaging. I don't know how marketable that is right now. Just simply recycled paper could replace a lot of the plastic packaging that's out there. And then for a lot lot of the time in restaurants is to really develop reusable systems and have in-house dishwashing, as well as starting to make that transition over the next couple of years towards bringing in things like takeout containers that customers can bring in, maybe credit programs. So there's all sorts of solutions. We really advocate for not replacing like one throwaway item with another, but that reusable systems are like the way to go.
Interestingly enough, the company I work for, Milliken, they have finally developed a PPE technology. It's an additive to put into single-use plastics so that they can be recycled more than once, which about 80% of plastics actually cannot be recycled because of the type of plastic that they're made from. So Milliken developed this additive to put into plastic so that they could be broken down more than one time. So that's kind of on the forefront of technology and research. So I know that that's being done. That's a little tidbit. And if you're interested, about that, I can tell you more. But another question is, how is the fishing industry contributing to this problem?
I love that question. And actually, a documentary that just came out, Seaspiracy, some folks may have seen, is interesting, and it also is slightly inaccurate, but one of the things that it points to is the fishing industry and talks about how big their impact is. Historically, the fishing industry has been a major contributor to the problem of plastics in the ocean, and it still is. The entanglements that animals are facing in the ocean. Actually, Oceana just won a campaign to ban drift nets off the coast of California, which are mile-long nets of mesh size about that big, so they're meant to catch large fish by the gills. And they also entangle everything from whales to sea turtles, sea lions. So that is a huge issue of entanglement. They've been catching about 60%, not what's targeted. But to put it in perspective, the fishing industry has always been this threat, and they're starting to phase out some of the gear that they've been using. Because of the recent skyrocketing of plastic production, we have made the calculation that these single-use products are actually more of a threat than fishing line and fishing gear. Will persist to be that threat at like the cellular level and the toxicity level for many decades to come, even after we've cleaned up a lot of the fishing gear from the ocean. But for sure, fishing gear does have an impact, and we try to eliminate as much as possible that causes damage and causes extra bycatch.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Is plastic popular because of its cost to make versus glass and metals?
Yes. Plastic is super cheap. It's highly subsidized. And it's also one of those, like, plastic is lightweight. So on a truck that could carry, a certain amount of plastic bottles, it could probably carry some degree less of glass bottles. So the weight of it is a thing, is one of those benefits of plastic. But it's also cheap because there's just been such an abundance and that
If we've lost Brady again, Ed Pletner had a very good explanation along the same lines as Brady was explaining. If you wanted to read that, I'm sure he sent it to everyone.
Sure. Yes, plastic is cheap relative to other materials. Petroleum oil is a key component and is relatively cheap and available. It's also lightweight and very flexible in the manufacturing process. Unfortunately, it's a major environmental issue, as being pointed out it's a huge challenge for us as a recycler to handle the various types of electronics, plastics we have to handle.
I know it just seems impossible right now, but there are some solutions, and and a lot of personal responsibility is part of that solution. It's to buy differently, shop differently. As consumers, if we will do that, we will help force certain manufacturers to think differently. I'm glad to hear about Milliken. Does anyone else have a solution or know of something, have read of something?
Seems like one solution with, you keep hearing about water bottles for this and the waste of filtering water, is these companies that make the water bottles, they also, a lot of them do, soda cans, and it sounds like aluminum cans are a good alternative, just to start using aluminum cans for, instead of bottled water is canned water, for now on. That seems like something that's already set up that they could do.
More cans, more bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, more aluminum
Glass.
cans instead, and they're recyclable. It sounds like a lot more. And,
Right. Well, just to digress a little bit, when I was, a younger lad, all of the sodas were in, glass bottles.
Glass.
I mean, that wasn't until maybe 15, 20 years ago that everything migrated over to plastic. So, and then on top of that, with all the bottled water that's so common today, but we need to take a step back and look at, like you said, Will, aluminum and or glass. And glass is easily recyclable. And today, we used to have like 10 cents deposit on each one. So
it still seems weird, the thought of throwing a glass bottle in the water.
Right? I don't think I could ever do that.
Yeah, I think I'd still glare at someone if some do that.
I feel bad if I'm hiking and I have an apple core, like I can't even throw that off the trail. It's the idea of just throwing something I'm bringing in out there is terrible. But
did we lose Brady? He just
maybe
his whole internet went down. At least it went down now and not
right
during the middle.
So we did get information on the beach cleanup. It's not really a beach cleanup, right? It's a virtual kind of around your neighborhood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what you do is you sign up and then you take pictures. It's virtual Saturday morning, and you're going to take pictures and then tag on the IFMA social media sites, kind of pictures of you cleaning up trash around your neighborhood and whatnot. So
it's a virtual group, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still picking up trash, but you're just not doing it as a group.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But I think later in the year, we could probably do something in person. That's just my opinion. So,
but like he said, it starts from even the rain and going into the storm drains and everything else. These different waste streams are happening in there. And Ed, if you're still there, can you give us some good news on recycling? Can you give us any suggestion? And you're on mute, Ed, if you're still there.
I'm here. You guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I had a bunch of stuff going on this morning. Yeah, it's plastics are really, really complicated and difficult issue. On the recycling side, it's really hard because with plastics, they're made out of a lot of different materials. So there's plastic isn't just one type of plastic. It's made out of lots of different types that make up all sorts of different plastics. So it's not like a metal where it's just like, when we recycle a metal, it's aluminum or steel or whatever it is. And there's kind of it's a known commodity, so to speak, on the recycling end. With plastics, it's not like that. It's a mix. They're always mixed as far as what they're made up of, and so it makes it really challenging in our world as a types of plastics. Obviously, most of you'd be familiar with like consumer electronics and stuff that you're using that's made out of plastics, and those are they're apples to oranges under the umbrella of plastic. And so when you're getting them in our situation, the stream, so to speak, the recycling stream of how we get them, we have to sort them appropriately. And then unfortunately what's been happening, like was pointing out, I think Brady was pointing out, is that a lot of this stuff in, at least domestically in the US with plastics, was getting kind of aggregated and shipped over to China, because in China is really where a lot of the plastics are used and manufactured. And so there was a kind of a robust common sense kind of approach to recycling that would be like, well, if all this stuff's being made in China, that's where all the infrastructure was set up to actually recycle this plastic and then to reuse it within as much as possible within new manufacturing. And then China put an end to that pretty abruptly back in, like Brady was referencing, back with the SWORD initiative. The problem is that we domestically in the US didn't have any sort of real infrastructure set up to be able to recycle these plastics adequately. And so really what happened is that the rest of this stream started going to other nations that were accepting it, that really have pretty lax environmental standards relative to the first world. And in the meantime, we haven't really had the infrastructure to keep up with the need to recycle this. And so it's starting to happen now. There's some government programs between private and government that are working together to get some sort of an infrastructure built out. But a lot of it has to do and is going to come back to producer responsibility and putting the onus on the producers, meaning those companies that manufacture and make these devices or anything out of plastics. They need to have the pressure put onto them to be able to make their electronics or whatever their products are in a way that is easy to recycle, while we continue to build out our infrastructure to be able to recycle this stuff. It's a really complicated issue. As always with any of this stuff, economics gets involved, right? It's not like we're not just talking about what's ideal. The reality is that these are for-profit businesses, and we really need the government to step up and be involved in enforcing policies and putting measures into place that change the dynamic of how these type of materials are used. Because, you know, as Brady points out, and as I think a lot of people have pointed out, the environmental impacts are significant. And plastics is one of the big culprits of that, because it's so readily used and so hard to recycle, you know, and it's not biodegradable, and that's the issue. And so like I said, like a lot of other things, it's a complicated issue. It's not black and white. There's a lot of stuff involved, but you know, it starts with organizations like this and people putting pressure on the manufacturers, on people who make this stuff, to be accountable. And there's some companies are getting there faster than others, but you know, the more people that are involved to make this an issue, the more pressure is put on these companies, and hopefully, you know, and like I said, the government's involved as well to help out on the back end as far as the infrastructure of it. So you know, there's tons of information out there if you guys want to you know, read up on it. I'll try and maybe take a look and see if I can send some stuff over. But for me personally speaking, in our industry as an electronics recycler, it is a major issue, and something that we deal with consistently, and we're consistently having to find appropriate ways to recycle the material we get as best as possible. And plastic's for us, one of the biggest issues that we face consistently.
I think another interesting idea would be, you know, it took a really long time to ban single-use plastic bags, you know, at grocery stores. But cities eventually started this downturn of, you know, of January 1st of this year, this city is no longer allowing plastic bags. And I think we've done a really good job of incorporating that in many cities across the nation. I think one area that I've been thinking of is, you know, the next thing is the beverage containers. Why can't cities start banning single-use plastic beverage containers in stores? So, you know, the city of Solana Beach, I can completely see them being able to do that and saying, okay, as of January 1st, 2022, no single-use plastic containers citywide. And what are they forced to do, right? They're forced to sell out of glass and aluminum. So I kind of think that that's the next revolution of plastic free.
I remember
Well,
when they told
when
us that, who else is, I was going to say that I remember when they told us that we should stop using paper bags and plastic was the way to go. And now we're going backwards.
Yeah, and it was a big uproar. People thought, oh my gosh, the convenience of my plastic bag at the grocery store, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to bring bags, and that's what everybody's been doing, and it hasn't been that big of a deal. Take it away and you have to find the next solution, and people have been okay with it. So
And
and
you
just like
get
I told
used to it,
Will,
you know.
yeah, just like I told Will, take away the option and it's the easiest
Mhm.
thing to do.
Yeah, your new you have a new routine afterwards that you get
Mhm.
used to,
Yeah.
and you don't even think about it anymore.
Nope. Becomes state of the art. Yeah.
Hey, I
This
just
is
wanted to
Brittany
say
in
I'm here.
CBRE.
Y'all-
I love the idea
Oh.
of switching to glass for reuse. I think that just as thinking about this thoroughly, I think it's a great idea, but I think that there might be some issues sanitary if we do reuse. And it's definitely going to push up the cost of the economy. So that to me either be a good thing or a bad thing. But definitely the environment is something that we need to continue, focus on for sure. I love that idea though. I would support it.
And I
One of
see
the
Brady's
things-
back.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my
Yes.
internet just totally went out. So one of the things I wanted to just bring up, because I'm hearing this great conversation, what's a lot of the solutions that we are proposing at the local level to some of these cities are simply like straws, utensils, condiment packets by request only. That would be one of the solutions that would reduce the plastic greatly and also save a ton of money for businesses. So it's really a win-win. We've gotten into the habit of handing out these straws, stirs, and utensils and condiment packets just willy-nilly, and it's gotten to become one of the major pollutants in the ocean. And like, I think Uber Eats saved about $3 million for their businesses in their first year, and that's even a small, one of the smaller delivery services. So there are huge cost savings that can be had just through that policy solution. And then a lot of the other ones we're proposing are phase outs that allow not an immediate ban and an immediate switchover, but would allow several years for the companies to start to build in these processes and to have some creative flexibility there as well.
So Brady, I got a question for you, because I've heard of Oceana, but I don't follow them or anything. Do you guys do work on like legislation and stuff like that for cities and states and I guess countries?
Yes, city,
Okay.
state, and federal. And so one of the federal bills that we are supporting is the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, and that's the big one that we really want to see pass. And then there are, I think, 12 bills right now in the state of California, and we're supporting 3 of them. Not to say we don't support the other ones, but we're really putting our efforts behind 3 of them. And one of them is that e-commerce packaging bill.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you were on when we were doing the Q&A. I think it's when you got cut off, but we were talking about the plastic bottles. It sounds like that's like a huge thing, and it seems to me like such a simple solution is instead of using bottled water is to do canned water. I mean, they already have all the infrastructure there for aluminum cans from sodas that they could easily switch to that, and wouldn't it sounds from this presentation that would solve that would put a big dent in the problem. Is that
and
right?
just the misconception that bottled plastic water is better for your health than maybe filtered water. I mean, it's a debate for sure, but there's so many chemicals in the plastic that you see the bottles with BPA free. That's only one of, I don't know, upwards of probably in the hundreds of chemicals that haven't been studied yet that could be harmful to human health. So that's just one of those things where, you know, glass or aluminum or paper, the paper is a different issue because there's also PFAS chemicals. And really what we want to see is the county, San Diego County, like last year, started an initiative to install a lot of those refill stations in the different county buildings. And that's just one of those solutions.
Yeah, we have those at my office too. They're pretty nice.
I do see those on the Midway. They were very proud of that fact as well. For if anyone who's been on the Midway, you'll see that.
Well, the airport does that as well. I mean, all over the airport, they have them.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, fantastic.
Any other questions? It's 9 o'clock. If you have any more conversation, questions or anything, Brady did put up his information, or we can also get it to him if there are other questions. Ed is available if you have recycling questions. I'm sure he'll be happy with that. Oh, and there's Brady's number in the chat right now. So we want to thank Brady for being the comeback king on this on this program, beating up that internet and coming back. We want to thank him for being here and enlightening us, telling us about the oceans, reigniting our love for the ocean and this planet, and opening our eyes. And thank you, Ed, for your information that you shared with us. And everyone who came up with solutions and ideas, let's take these back to our facilities and start trying to make a change there. If we could all take social responsibility in our own lives, and then let's also do what we can to change our small world, which is our own company, anything that we can do to help. So thank you all very much. Sign up for I Love a Clean San Diego and do your part around your neighborhood. And then we'll see you at our next event, which will be our meeting on the 12th. Thank you all and have a good day.